Welcome back, Dylan. Can you check out the YouTube and see if it's
Yeah, I got you.
if we're good?
Let's see.
We should be good, right?
Yep, I'm hearing myself. I'm hearing you, so we should be
Okay.
good.
Um,
Yeah, I'll keep the chat open just as an in case. But
I'm gonna send out. I'm gonna post another link on Twitter.
sounds good.
While I'm doing that, why don't you just kind of recap us on that trade on where we left off on that?
Yeah, it was a three-team deal that I had proposed between Boston, Brooklyn, and Charlotte. It was Charlotte receiving Nick Claxton, the 8th overall pick, and the 28th overall pick. Boston receiving Grant Williams, Mark Williams, Jalen Wilson, and the 33rd overall pick. And the Nets would get Porzingis, the 4th pick, and then 2 future first-round picks, one from Charlotte, one from Boston. The one from Charlotte is via Dallas. So I don't know. I mean, to me, I absolutely love the trade. You move 4 spots up. You get some value back in return for Claxton. You get some value for taking on, taking on Porzingis' contract. And Boston kind of gets to retool the roster and add some solid pieces. Jalen Wilson and Grant Williams, they could be solid depth pieces for them once Tatum's healthy again after next season. You add Mark Williams, who could be your established big man. Hopefully they figure out a way to keep him healthy because Charlotte hasn't been able to. But, moving 4 spots back as well, they would have picks 32 and 33 now. I think it's a pretty fair deal all around for them. But again, a 3-team deal to move 4 spots up is pretty tough to do. If this was to be a straight up deal, I could see it being Claxton to Charlotte and the 8th overall pick for Jusuf Nurkic, the 4th overall pick, and whatever has to be thrown in between there. But that's the straight up deal that I would think. Jusuf Nurkic is on an expiring $19 million contract, so it makes sense for both sides. But at that point, Charlotte would just have to figure out a way to move on from Mark Williams, which could be a little harder to do individually rather than doing it into a 3-team trade. So that's why I did the 3-team deal for it.
Is Charlotte still looking to move on from Mark? I mean, Mark Williams is a good player. He's a quality NBA player. He's a quality big who had borderline all-star numbers for long stretches of the season last year. Is it someone that Charlotte wants to move off of? Or is it just something that they saw the trade from the Lakers and said, yeah, that's good value. We have to make that. Is it a player they're actively looking to shop?
I think the Mark Williams value has plummeted simply because his availability is an issue. And then to top it off, he failed the physical. And I think that, whether it's real or not, that's what's been reported. So I think that really plummets his value. I don't think you see a young player and 2 first-round picks coming back in return for him. So what do? In this scenario, I have them packaging him to move 4 spots down and grab a starting caliber big in this league. So I don't know. I see it as being fair. People can come and debate it to see if it doesn't make sense. But just from looking at it, all sides, it makes sense.
Who would be which team would not like this trade?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. I mean, Boston fans are going to complain because they're not going to win a championship next year. And they also just complain because they think they're getting back value for Porzingis, even though they don't realize they need to get under the second apron. And to do so, you usually have to attach picks to get rid of a player with a contract like that. So Boston fans will probably be upset. But I think if you can net back Grant Williams, Mark Williams, and Jalen Wilson, you're saving $8.5 million, but you're adding 3 quality players to
Boston's getting rid of Porzingis.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I understand Porzingis was an all-star. Porzingis, had some really nice seasons. He's got age and he can't run up and down the court anymore. I don't like if someone's willing to take that salary from you and you get a starting center in return, which they are, don't you just say thank you?
I agree. I think Mark Williams is actually an improvement over Porzingis. I mean, they're both
especially
on and off.
I would say so in total. I'm not a big Porzingis guy, but at this point, especially Porzingis, it is in all likelihood done.
Yeah, you have to think, which is why I want him in Brooklyn.
Right.
It's practically like paying somebody like Ben Simmons. Please, I want another Ben Simmons next year to be on my team. I don't want to be a mediocre playing team. Give me a bottom 5 record and a chance at a top 3 pick.
All right. So, I mean, let me pause it. Just to kind of surmise, we'd be giving up Jalen Wilson, the number 8 overall pick, and Claxton. So Claxton 8 and Jalen Wilson
for Porzingis 4 and 2 future firsts.
From our standpoint, you have to make that, right?
Yeah. See, how I look at it is you're giving up 8 in Claxton for 4, right? 4 and a future first.
Yeah.
And then to take on Porzingis, you get a first. So it's like Jalen Wilson and a future first for Porzingis. That's how I see it. And I think that's very much so realistic because, again, the whole point of trading Porzingis on Boston's standpoint is to free up cap space to get under the second apron, right? And the only way to do that is if you take back less contracts. They still want to try and find quality players, which is why I think bringing back Grant Williams isn't a horrible option. Bringing in Mark Williams on the final year of his rookie contract is great value. But again, Mark Williams and Porzingis play pretty much the same amount of games per year. They're both injury prone. But if you're able to keep your 2026 pick, it really doesn't matter what happens next year because knowing Boston and how the lottery works, if they're one of the 14 teams in that lottery, they'll get bumped up to the top 4 without a doubt. So
here's how I would look at it if I'm Charlotte. I have 4. Would I rather have 4, and let's say 4 is VJ Edgecombe? Or would I rather have Nick Claxton and 8? And so let's say Nick Claxton and Asengwe.
Well, so this scenario is only based on if Ace Bailey is available at 4. If Ace isn't available at 4,
okay,
Charlotte's not going to trade that pick. They're going VJ, So I don't think this scenario even comes to fruition unless Philly passes on Ace.
Let's talk about that for a minute because we talked about this a little off air. I don't want to get too much in the weeds because I do think Claxton's going to get traded to Lakers, so I want to spend time on that. But to me, and we talked about this off air, Ace Bailey to Philly literally makes 0 sense. Now Philly has done things erratically in the past; they've done things that make 0 sense, so I wouldn't put it past them. But I'm high on Ace Bailey. But I don't think Ace Bailey to Philly, unless Philly wants to trade Embiid and start over again, which they've given no indication that's what they want to do. Ace Bailey to Philly makes 0 sense. Am I wrong about that?
I wouldn't say that it makes 0 sense. It comes down to it makes sense in the way that you can really develop him and not throw him into a system where he can fail very easily right away, right? Ace would be able to play.
I disagree. No, I think Ace goes
I don't think Ace would have a significant role in Philly his first year, right? And I think that would lead to more of a mentorship role from Paul George to help him develop his game. And what that would do is it would allow them to see how the season plays out. And if it doesn't work between George and Embiid again, you can then blow it up and have a core that consists of Maxey, McCain, and Ace, which is a nice core to start your rebuild with.
The core is not bad, but if we're trying to win this year, if the goal is the East is weak, Boston is down, the Knicks aren't good, Indy's nothing special, we want to compete in the East, then Ace doesn't even see the court, so you're burning away his rookie deal, right? You're burning a year of his rookie deal, and every day you keep Embiid, he loses value. I said you should have traded Embiid before last year's season started. Right?
Yeah.
If you're going to keep him again this year and it doesn't work out, next year at the deadline, he's going to have even less value. Right?
Think about it this way. Philly has a decent stock of draft capital, right? They own multiple Clippers firsts, which the Clippers are on the verge of having that, older team that likely will start to digress at some point. So you have some valuable draft capital there. They also own a majority of their picks. Some of the picks that are out right now are protected. Like this year, they got lucky and the protection held up and they were able to keep the pick. So they have a decent amount of draft capital to where if they had to sell low on guys like George and Embiid, it wouldn't necessarily hurt them, right? So that's why I'm saying it makes sense for Ace to go there because he is like a Paul George-like player. And when it comes time for George to either be traded or to be cut, to retire, whatever it may be with his time ending in Philly, then you at least have his replacement. Now, for them to contend right away, does it make sense? Not necessarily. And if there is a world where they can move back to a spot like 6 with Washington, maybe 8 with Brooklyn, 5 with Utah, like these are all trade back scenarios that do make sense where they can net back some value for guys who are ready to win now. But the problem is if you're going to do that, then your window is now, and you have minimal high upside players currently who can help you out, right? You have Maxey, who's on an extension. You have McCain, who in 2-3 years will be extension eligible. But after that, you really don't have much youth. So yes, you do have the Clippers picks and some of your protected picks that you could get back in return that hold some value. But would they prefer to have to rebuild and develop year after year, or would they rather have a guy off their bench who is ready to go in a year or two to contend or compete, or to, just not be complete, dog shit when Embiid and George's time are up. So it to me personally, I would say it makes more sense than it doesn't for Philly to take Ace. It just depends on what they want to do.
If it's an all-in year for Philly,
Mhm.
and you're drafting a guy number 3 overall, which I don't even think is going to crack the rotation in any meaningful way. I understand the long-term view of it, but we're taking a short-term view here. We're saying we're keeping Embiid because we want to win this year. If the goal is to win this year, he doesn't. And I like Ace Bailey. He doesn't get me any closer to winning this year. Not at all.
If I was Philly, and I'm being genuine, if I was Philly, I would take going after Kevin Durant much more seriously, because they have the package to get it done.
Yeah.
Right? You could give up Paul George and you can give up 2 or 3 firsts to go and get KD.
Would you be willing to give up McCain in lieu of some of those? If I'm Phoenix, I said I want McCain. I want McCain, and
I don't think the price tag on KD is that much because he's a 1-year rental.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're looking at Philly's roster out of young players, I mean, let's see. I'll do a package right now for him. If you were to do a Philly and Phoenix deal with KD heading to Phoenix, it would be KD to Phoenix. Or I'm sorry, KD to Philly, Paul George to Phoenix, and then maybe one of either Jared Butler or Ricky Council, maybe Justin Edwards. Like they have small time youth pieces. Let's just do Justin Edwards, for example, right? You give up the 35th overall pick in this year's draft. You give up the 2020. They can't trade a 2027 because they don't have a 27 or a 26. I think they're protected. So let's just say a 2029 swap rights with
Wait, is Phoenix a second apron team? They are, right?
Yeah, they're well over the second apron. They were the most expensive roster this year on paper.
Yeah.
If you were to do Paul George, Justin Edwards, the 35th pick, the Clippers swap first and maybe one additional first for KD, I think that makes a ton of sense. It's a bad contract in Paul George, so you have to kind of give a little bit more than what KD's value actually is. But if you can give up an additional first in that with Paul George, so it would be Paul George, Edwards, 2 first, and the 35th pick for KD, right? And then you get to keep the 3rd overall pick, so you can take Ace. You would have a rotation that consists of Maxey, McCain, Oubre, KD, and Embiid. You would have Drummond, Eric Gordon, Lonnie Walker, Ace Bailey, Ricky Council, and Adem Bona off the bench. That's a solid rotation.
It's a good rotation.
Right? And even if you do the trade, Philly only adds $1 million worth of cap salary. So they still would have a pretty decent-sized mid-level exception to where they can go out and try and sign a guy like Nickeil Alexander-Walker or, somebody of that nature. So for Philly, it makes a ton of sense. And Embiid and Durant have had that relationship in the past where they're very extreme competitors against one another, but they also respect each other very much so. So I don't know why Philly isn't trying to look into that. I think for example, I think the Philly package to Phoenix is a better offer than San Antonio's offer. San Antonio could probably overvalue him in picks, but I don't think they would be stupid enough to do it. Getting back Paul George, I understand that he had a really bad year, and it's also a really bad contract. But if you're trying to keep Devin Booker happy, at least for an additional year, Paul George is a guy that you can add who, say you can move Bradley Beal and, somehow, some way get some form of value back, right? Having Booker, Paul George, Nick Richards, Royce O'Neal, like that's a decent roster. It's not the end of the world, but yeah, you would have Paul George, Justin Edwards, Devin Booker, Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal, Cody Martin, Nick Richards, Ryan Dunn. Like that's a semi decent team, but at the end of the day, I still think they need to blow it up. It doesn't make sense for
They
them.
have to blow it up. Yeah.
Yeah, they're too far over the second apron to where it doesn't make sense. At some point, you got to just bite the bullet and understand that you screwed yourself by going after Beal and KD. KD probably should not have net you that much of value back at the time, even though he was still playing at an incredible level. 5 first-round picks for a 35-year-old was really not ideal. And then to top it off, you gave up every second-round draft pick that you pretty much have, plus multiple firsts that were swaps to Washington for Bradley Beal. It was just horrible decision-making by that new owner. So yeah, I think they should blow it up. But realistically, I think if Philly's serious about winning, they should look at KD.
No, I agree, and that not a rumor that I've heard a lot about, but I think it makes a lot of sense. You put him with Paul George. Well, I guess Paul George would go. You put him with Embiid. You put him with Maxey. You put him with McCain. I think
you'd pretty much be giving yourself a better opportunity to win now for at least 1 year, while also clearing up all of the cap space from Paul George's contracts because KD's an expiring contract. So let's say it doesn't work out, right? KD, looks his age. He starts to regress a little bit. They don't make it far in the playoffs. Okay, KD can walk. You don't have to pay him. That's a free $54 million in cap space. And then you can try and trade Embiid for some form of value, right? And then you could just rebuild the roster around Ace, Maxey, and Jared McCain with a load of cap space. If you go after KD if you were Philly, you would have KD's contract, which is, let's see, $54.7 million. So you would have $54.7 million from KD. You would have Kelly Oubre at $8.3 million. You would have Drummond at $5 million. Eric Gordon at $3.5 million. Lonnie Walker at $3 million. That's over $70 million in cap space for the following season to build a roster around Maxey, McCain, and Ace. That's definitely something that you could work with while also still having some pretty valuable draft capital that's protected. So again, it just really depends on the route that they want to take. But if I was Philly personally, I would go after KD because he's kind of your easiest spot in contending for at least one more year while also putting yourself in the best position to rebuild if it's necessary.
All right, I do want to transition back. I want to get to Claxton to the Lakers. We haven't spent a ton of time on that. To me, this is the most realistic trade. If I was given even money on what team Nick Claxton plays for next year, I would pick the Lakers.
By far the Lakers. Yeah, by far.
Okay.
I don't even think that's close. I think the Lakers are the team that makes the most sense. I think that you are going to hear his name come up on draft night. I just don't think a deal is going to get done. And that's going to leave the Lakers to get him. And just to touch up on the last KD thing, the guy's 37. He's not worth a third overall pick. That's
out.
I wouldn't even give up the 10th overall pick if I was Houston for KD because he's 37 years old. Minnesota giving up 17th overall, that makes sense. It's a mid-first round pick. It's a very good draft class. So at 17, you're still getting a solid prospect, but you're not giving up, an incredibly high upside player. Well, that's why I said, Lou, if you give up say you give up a 2029 Clippers swap, which will likely be a lottery pick, right? If you give up an additional first, and then you give up the 35th pick plus Paul George and a young player, that's probably where KD's value is at now. And you also have to remember, too, Phoenix isn't in a position to negotiate what his value is because they're so high over the second apron and because they have no roster to contend with. So at this point, it's kind of like a similar position to Porzingis. It's a salary dump at this point. You're really just trying to get back something that will keep Devin Booker happy for a year while also regaining some draft capital. But as for Claxton, the only teams that I can see even being of some form of interest, like I said, I think the Lakers are by far the clear favorite. I think Charlotte, Washington, Toronto, New Orleans, those are other teams that could show interest. Atlanta is a team that's searching for a big, and he's been linked to them for a little bit. Maybe a team like Dallas tries to look into him. You know, who knows? I think they're going after Drew Holiday, which I think is kind of stupid when you can just sign somebody on a cheap contract like Tyus Jones or Trey Jones. I do think that if they're really looking to move on from Gafford and PJ, that Claxton makes a lot of sense there. But again, it just depends on what they want to do. I think Indiana could be another team that looks into him if they lose out on Miles Turner.
They're good, yeah. They're gonna. I would imagine. We'll see. We'll see. I guess if the Pacers do win the championship, maybe that changes things. Like they got to keep Turner, but I did not see Turner coming back there. But all right, the Lakers trade for Claxton. I know we've touched on this before, but this keeps rearing up. We know that Luka likes Claxton. The Lakers need Claxton. Mm-hmm. There's no other centers. If they don't trade for Claxton, they're going to get a mid-level acceptance center who they're going to start. I mean, it makes way more sense for him to go to the Lakers than for him not to go to the Lakers, which is why I do think this is going to happen. And they've already traded for a center, Mark Williams, who they had to undo the trade because Williams failed the physical. What would a trade, would it include Rui Hachimura? Would it include Dalton Connect? What would that trade look like? A lot of people were high on Connect. It just seems like the Lakers aren't necessarily one of them. What are your thoughts on Connect? And is he part of that trade? If not, is Rui part of that trade? Are they both part of that trade? What would that look like?
I really don't see Rui getting traded. It doesn't make sense. He's similar in age to Luka. He's a very good role player to have on your team. For me personally, I think the trade that makes the most sense, it would be Gabe Vincent, Maxi Kleber, Dalton Connect, a 2031 first for Nick Claxton, Jalen Wilson, and the 27th overall pick. Right? Consolidate a pick by getting a youthful player, but also adding a first-round pick down the line. Right? And then you get the 2 expiring contracts of Vincent and Kleber. That clears up the last 3 years worth of salary for Claxton. So you're pretty much moving off of roughly $70 million in contracts over the next 3 years for 2 expiring contracts in Kleber, plus a young player in Connect, and a future first-round pick. If I'm Brooklyn and I'm giving up the 27th pick and Claxton, I'm asking for an additional first, which would likely be a swap first in 2032 or 2030. But I am asking for it. I don't think that it's necessary to sell low on a player like Claxton when you're realistically, the trades like Dalton Connect and 2 first-round picks, right? Because the 2 expiring contracts means nothing to us. They're likely going to get bought out or flipped for additional seconds. So, to me, if you're giving up the 27th pick in Claxton, I'm asking for 2 firsts in Connect.
What do you? Connect was a guy he's a 24-year-old rookie. He's a guy that struggled to make the rotation. There are people who think highly of him. What are your thoughts on Dalton Connect?
I think he's just a solid role player. I don't think he's going to be anything special. I don't see him having, some incredible high upside. If you look at, I'm trying to see him right now. He is trying to find his age. Yeah, he is 24. So it's not like there's really much development room for him, but he could be a solid depth piece. He averaged 9.5 points, 3 rebounds. He shot fairly efficient from the field at 46%. He shot 35.5% from 3. That's solid numbers for a guy who, was taken by a Lakers draft pick. I mean, the Lakers are always drafting later in the draft. So it's a solid player. I don't see anything special in him, but I definitely wouldn't mind getting him back in 2 future firsts that could later on be used in trades.
Dalton and 2 firsts, y'all smoking. Well, it's a first and a swap. I mean,
here's how because again, I think that some people are just so beyond idiotic in terms of how they value certain players. And yes, I'm gonna say that about Ribby because I know he's a Knicks fan, so he's clearly delusional in many senses of basketball knowledge. But if you're getting back Maxi Kleber and Gabe Vincent, those 2 are useless. Those are just the contract matches. So realistically, they're not even a part of the trade, right? It's Connect, a first, and a swap. You can add a top 5 protection to that unprotected first that I mentioned. It doesn't really matter. But at the end of the day, you're getting a starting caliber big man. And you were also just hand-gifted Luka by the league. It already was reported. No team is going to give the Lakers something and not try and get something out of it. Like, they're not just going to give you somebody because you're the Lakers. This isn't Adam Silver pulling strings. These are NBA GMs who want some value back.
To
Nick
be
Claxton
fair,
is the
Dallas
starting
got
big.
Cooper Flag for you know.
But that's my point. Like, nobody's
Yeah.
this isn't Adam Silver spoon feeding, his favorite teams to continue being great. Like, this is NBA GMs working with one another, and they have a need for a big man. You don't get a starting big man. It's like trading a Prius in for a Lamborghini. Nobody's doing that, right? And I'm not saying Claxton's a Lamborghini, but you have Jackson Hayes as your only starting big man on your roster. So yeah, Claxton does look like a Lamborghini compared to fucking Jackson Hayes.
Yeah,
right?
I'm no Claxton fan, but Jackson Hayes is god awful. Jackson Hayes was picked with the 8th overall pick in the draft.
He's horrible.
The Nets can't do that. You cannot take a guy at Jackson Hayes' caliber with the 8th overall pick.
Yeah, and to top it off, and to top it off too, not to mention, they were willing to give up the same exact offer for Mark Williams, a guy who plays half the games that Claxton plays and is a semi-lesser defender than what Claxton is. So, exactly, Lucy, you get it. The terminology was going to be used at some point in this, but yes, it's like shitting your pants and changing your shirt. You gotta figure out a way to improve the roster.
Look, I don't know what the exact trade is going to be, right? So, is this the exact trade? I do think a similar trade to what the Lakers already showed their hand. God dang it. They already showed you what they were willing to trade for a starting center.
Yeah.
The Nets would be stupid not to ask for something extremely similar to what they already asked. I understand Mark Williams, healthy, is better than Claxton. Understood. He's not healthy, and that's part of the trade. That's part of what brings his value down. Claxton is.
Yep. Claxton's a guy that plays 60-plus games a season. He can protect the rim. He can play the perimeter, something that Mark Williams can't do. It's a guy who's healthy, and the Lakers need something.
Claxton, I know.
At the end of the day, you have to when you're looking to contend, 9 times out of 10, the team that is contending needs to pay more than what they usually would. That's just how that works.
This is like I said, Kleber is not. They have to get rid of Kleber. I'm doing you a favor by taking guys like Kleber's not adding value to the trade.
The only 2 packages that I could see being realistic is Maxey, Gabe, an unprotected first, and a swap first, or Maxey, Vincent, Kennett, and a first.
Yeah,
those 2 deals are that's how that works. These are already things that have been reported. They have no way of getting Claxton unless if they're packaging both Kleber and Vincent together, or if they give you Rui and Kennett. So at the end of the day, who do you want? You want to keep Rui, or do you want to give up 2 low-level guys and a young player? Because Kennett, they already traded. They already traded him, and he was pissed sitting on that bench when they forced him to come back, so that he doesn't want to be there. So that doesn't hurt them.
To be fair, he doesn't have much of a choice either. He's Dalton Connect. You don't get a say in where you go. You're Dalton Connect. But no, Dylan's
like
right.
He was talking like he's not a Knicks fan.
King Ribby, if you had Cam Johnson instead of Mikal Bridges, you'd be in the NBA Finals, and you traded 6 first-rounders to get Mikal Bridges. Okay? Like, if you're looking to compete and you're looking to win now, sometimes you have to spend. And the Lakers already showed they were willing to do that with the Williams trade. That's what I'm saying. They already showed you their hand, right? It's like going into a car dealership and complaining about the price, but I already showed them I had $100,000 cash in my pocket. It's like, well, I know what you can spend because it's sitting in your pocket. They already showed us what they were willing to spend. They already showed us. And you can't tell me with all of his injuries, Mark Williams, his asking price is that much higher than Claxton's. We're talking about details here. That is the crux of the trade. Now, do we throw in second? Whatever, right? Like, I don't know. But what we're talking about is what the trade is going to look like more or less.
Yeah, this is just a baseline of a deal. It is 2 expiring contracts and 2 first-round picks, or it is 2 expiring contracts, a young player, and a first. If you don't want that, by all means, don't. Be a first-round exit again and waste LeBron's last year. It doesn't hurt us. We'll find more value for Claxton. It doesn't matter.
I tread lightly on that too. We'll find more value for Claxton. That's a pretty
We
good.
will.
That's pretty good.
There's going to be a team that wants a young 26-year-old starting center in this league. That doesn't
No,
hurt
I
us.
agree.
He's also on a descending
There's a
contract. It doesn't hurt us to
there's
keep
a
him.
market for him, but what we're getting from the Lakers deal is pretty good. Like that's pretty good. We'll
It's
get
all right.
other trades.
Yeah, it's all right. I mean, if they lock down Luka this offseason, you have to think the picks that they're giving up are not as valuable, right?
Right.
You know, at that point, he's going to be a Laker for life, which puts them in playoff contention at least every year. So those are low-level picks. I mean, this is the funny part about Lakers, Knicks, and Celtics fans, because these three franchises and fan bases are so beyond delusional to a point where they think that they could trade for a Maserati by giving up a pile of shit. It's strange. This isn't like real basketball knowledge. And again, this is why I discredit a lot of people on their basketball knowledge. You're complaining about getting a starting big man who's healthier than Mark Williams, but you were okay with giving up the same exact package for a guy who's similar in age for a guy who plays half the games. It's strange. Everybody's a name watcher. Everybody's a box score checker. This isn't basketball knowledge. You're getting a starting point guard who's a perfect lob threat next to, a starting center who's a perfect lob threat next to Luka, who can defend the perimeter and block shots. That's better than anything that you're going to find on the open market right now. So again, like I said, this is me as a GM. Take the deal that we want, or better luck finding somebody else. Because who else are you going to go and get? You're going to sign 38-year-old Brook Lopez to a minimum deal? Good luck.
Who can't lob, who can't defend the pick and roll, who can't switch. He can't do any of the things that you need him to do. He can't do any of those things.
It doesn't matter who the Lakers add this season. They're not winning a championship. I love LeBron. I want to see him win one more before he retires. But he's not going to win one. That's just the bottom line. Luka's not a guy that can get you over the hump. You need to add defensive players around him who can space the floor. You got minimal. Austin Reeves, extremely overvalued. He's going to get paid a shit ton. You going to keep him? I doubt it. You know, there's nothing that they can do. So let them keep wasting picks. Let them keep wasting LeBron's years and watch them continue to be first round, second round exits. Doesn't hurt us. I'm not a fan of the team, so I'm worried about the Nets.
What up, Chris? Appreciate you dropping by, Chris. Please like, support, subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button. Smash the like button. Gary, my brother, love you. Hope you are doing well today. Dylan is awesome. Incredible content here.
Appreciate you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate you dropping by. All right.
Debating with Lakers, Knicks, and Celtics fans to me, though, is just the funniest thing in the world. They're the most delusional fan bases I've ever seen in my life.
The craziest thing to me is the Knicks fans, though, because at least the Lakers and the Celtics have championships.
I was going to say, isn't Ribby a Knicks fan, too?
Ribby's a Knicks fan, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Get off your knees for the Lakers, dude. Get up.
I don't understand the Knicks fans, though, because their franchise is abysmal. This century, the Nets have been to 2 more finals than the Knicks.
The Nets have been to 2 finals compared to the Knicks 0. The Nets have had 12 40-plus win seasons. The Knicks have had 8. I mean, come on. Because if you're talking about a 25-year sample size, the Nets have been more successful than the Knicks have. And you just made a conference finals in which you lost to 6 games to the same team you lost in 7 last year, with a better team this year, and in a weaker Eastern Conference because you played an injured Celtics team. Jaylen Brown on a torn meniscus and Tatum blows out his Achilles. How much more gift wrapping do you need?
Look, to be fair to the Knicks had the Celtics beat before.
They probably did. I don't doubt that. They probably did. I mean, I think the series goes to 7 if his Achilles isn't hurt and if Jaylen Brown isn't playing. I mean, if Jaylen Brown isn't playing with a torn meniscus and Tatum doesn't blow out his Achilles, that series goes to 7. And you have to think, who's the more experienced team in late game series? Is it the Celtics or is it the Knicks?
Well, I mean, obviously the Celtics, yeah. But it looked like to me, like the Pacers were going to beat the Knicks. Right? I said that the Pacers were beating the Knicks. The Knicks were beating the Celtics. It didn't matter what the Celtics did. The Celtics were up 15 points in 3 of the 4 games the Knicks won. They were up 20 in 2 of the 4. Right? So it's like, okay, the Knicks were winning that series. The Knicks just had the antidote for the Celtics, and the Celtics couldn't close out games, just like the Knicks couldn't close out the Pacers. The Knicks were beating the Celtics. To be fair to the Knicks, they were beating the Celtics.
I think if the series goes to 7, that the Celtics win it. Simply and again, I hate Boston more than I do the Knicks. Genuinely. I hate the entire city of Boston as a whole because of their fan bases and because of their sports teams. I wanted the Knicks to win that series. Like, realistically, if that series goes to 7, though, Celtics probably win. They do. They just have more experience in those late series. They do. They've been in the playoffs the last 6 years. Tatum and Brown are more experienced playoff players than Brunson is. You know?
Let me ask you this: if the Knicks and the Pacers went to Game 7, who wins that series?
Probably the Pacers.
Pacers beating by 20 in Game 7, right? But that's what I'm saying, though. Like the Knicks had every answer. There was no more. There were no more adjustments the Celtics could have made. I see. The Knicks were just going to beat them, and that's like just like the Knicks had no more adjustments. Like the Pacers were just going to beat them. Like that's
Ruby, by the way, I didn't say get on your knees. I said get off your knees. I don't swing that way. That's one. Two, if you're going to come into somebody's chat speaking delusion and stupidity, expect words. Don't cry about it.
See,
grow up.
This is over the last 21 years. And this is not, look, neither team should be happy with what they've done over the last 21 years.
No, not at all. It's like again, it's like throwing shit at fire. You know, they're both horrible franchises over the last 25 years.
But Knicks fans don't understand that they're franchise. Net fans fully understand this. If you've been a New Jersey Net fan like I have, you go back to the Kenny Anderson days, you've been a Net fan, you understand your franchise is a joke and it sucks, right? Okay, granted. Knicks fans making fun of the Nets is like when Cowboy fans make fun of like I'm a Jets fan. When Cowboy fans make fun of my Jets, it's like, bro, I've been to 3 conference championship games since you've been to 1. Okay, you don't get to make fun of me. Knicks fans don't get to make fun of me. The Knicks have had more success the last 21 years. I don't think I agree with that statement. Like, yes, they've gotten 1 round further. The Nets haven't gotten to the conference finals, but who's won more playoff series in that time span? The Nets have, by far.
Yeah.
By far. Right? They got to the second round with Pierce and KG.
Since the 21st century has begun, the Nets have been a more successful organization than the Knicks have. That's the stats show it. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't. Get over it. Stop crying. Be better. You know? I don't know what to tell you. Just be better.
Knicks fans don't get to make fun of Nets fans. They don't. I'm not saying the Net franchise has been good the last 25 years or at any point. Since the NBA merger, the Nets franchise has not been good. Neither has the Knicks franchise. I understand that right now, at this moment, the Knicks are better than the Nets, clearly. But the Knicks franchise is not good. Not. Like, and the Knicks and the Nets continue to go to the second round in the Jason Kidd era. They lost to they lost to Miami. They lost to who did they play after they lost to Shaq in Miami. And the next year, who did they lose to? After they beat Indiana. But that's when they lost to Miami again. Is that who they lost to? The Vince Carter series. So that would be like 07, 06. The year that Vince Carter single-handedly beat Indiana in the first round. Who did they lose to in the second round that year?
Yeah, that was the Heat.
That was the Heat. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Then when they beat Toronto in the first round, who did they lose to? They lost to Cleveland in the second round?
I believe so.
Yeah, they lost. They've been consistently. They went to the second round a lot. They just couldn't get past that hump. The Nets, the Knicks haven't. From 2000 to 2020, the Knicks got past the first round of the playoffs once. Correct? In 20 years, they got out of the first round once.
Mm-hmm.
The Nets were not that bad. They really haven't been that bad. Like, I'm not even trying to defend the Nets here. They've been abysmal. But, like, can we be serious? The Knicks have been worse outside of the last 2 years. The Knicks have been worse.
Yeah, for sure. Again, it's like it's a weird debate because for the last 6 years, the Nets ruled and took down the Knicks in 11, 12 straight games when they had KD and Kyrie. You know, all right, you're doing the same now. There's no cookies to be given out. You suck, we're good. We suck, you're good. There's no. It's like throwing shit at fire. You're not solving anything other than stinking up the rest of the area. You're not doing anything.
All right, we gotta wrap this up. I gotta wrap this up. We're gonna be back later in the week, possibly tomorrow, Dylan. Any update?
I think we're gonna probably shoot for more so Wednesday afternoon or Thursday morning. I think I'm gonna head up to her house tonight. So
okay. All right, so we're
All
back
right.
Wednesday or Thursday. We're gonna do a mock draft, and then we're gonna look at what is it gonna take to get Fears, and if we can't get Fears, what are our options at 8? Is that Maluak? Is it Queen? Is it
Yeah.
Knepel? Is
What's
it
going to be interesting, and just to
Ascendway?
what just to close off with one thing, it's going to be very interesting to see what Brooklyn does, because I'm hearing that they do want to try and move up for Jeremiah Fears, right? And if they move up for Fears, do they still try and look to move up for a second lottery pick? I think that's where it gets really interesting, right? Because if you can find a way to move up to 5, let's just say, because Utah has picks in this year's draft, there is no need for them to take the 19th overall pick. So if there is a world where you can move 8, and again, you're going to have to pay high to move up these spots. Say you give up 8 and maybe a future first and a future protected, like heavily protected first. So it's like 3 firsts to move up 3 spots, right? Would you do that to get Fears at 5 and then move Johnson and 19 to move up to 10 for a guy like Carter Bryant, maybe for a guy like Noah Senge? Like, these are the conversations that now need to be had. And if that's the case, does Brooklyn look to try and move up again later in the draft? Like, at that point, you're going to have picks 26, 27, and 36 still left over after making those 2 trades. You have to think that you're trying to package something up again to move up, because I don't think Brooklyn's going to want to walk away with a senior in college center. I think you're going to want to look at those Thomas Sorbers or those Jawan Beringers, maybe Danny Wolf is probably the only one I could see them taking. That's considerably an upperclassman. So again, it just depends on what the value is of how you're going to move up.
What was cooler, Cam Thomas scoring 43 in a row or Linsanity?
Linsanity, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm not
I
biased.
agree.
I'm not biased. Linsanity was fucking sick. Nobody expects a 6'1" Asian dude to go out there and do what he did. That dude defied all odds.
After he won those 3 games in a row, you know where that winning streak ended, right? Against the Nets.
Ribby, you can't say you're talking to one person when you use the term y'all. That's a multi-person term. But go on. I love talking shit, man, because I can back it up too. That's the problem. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a shit, man.
I want to close up with this, and this is going to segue into our next show.
Let's do it.
Let's say one of these 3 guys fell to 8. VJ, Fears, or Ace. And there's rumors that Ace is free falling. If he doesn't go 3rd, he's going to free fall. And he could free fall to 8. Which one of those guys, if we were sitting and picking at 8, who would, of those 3, who would you want to fall at 8?
Fears by far. I mean, listen, if Ace is available at 8, you take him. But the problem is when you see a player fall that far, you kind of think like, all right, there's got to be something wrong with him, right? It's kind of similar with Shedeur Sanders this past year, right? Top 5 projected pick fell all the way to what, the 5th, 6th round?
5th round, yeah.
Right? There's something weird about that. And whether it's skill, attitude, willingness to learn, whatever it may be, there is reasons why people fall in those types of drafts. Like, look at Michael Porter Jr., right? Projected top 3 pick, should have been the number 1 overall pick, messed up his back, fell all the way to 14. He's never been the same, right? He's now just a solidified role player. There's reason why guys drop. I don't think he could fall all the way down to 8. I don't think that's possible. I can see him falling as far as 5. I think that if Philly decides to take somebody at 3 that's not named Ace or VJ, then that leaves VJ at 4 to Charlotte, and that leaves whoever's at 5 to either take Ace or trade back and have a team move up for Ace.
I don't know if he can fall to 8. I heard rumblings that he could. Like, so VJ, Trey Johnson, Fears could all definitely go ahead of him, correct? Hypothetically?
I mean, all right, so if it's me personally, it just, again, it sucks because it's good teams ahead of the bad teams in this draft, which is bullshit, yeah. And I think the lottery system should be abolished, but
it should be.
If you're looking at it from from a skill and upside standpoint, Ace is by far the 3rd overall pick. If you're looking at it from the projection of who has a safer upside and could be more of a play now guy, I think you take Fears. I think you take maybe even Knepel. I'm not saying Knepel's going to be better than Ace. Nobody say that. Nobody says that. I don't say it. I'm just saying in terms of who could possibly be taken over him, because teams think that there's a more willingness for a player like that. Knepel very much so could be. I don't think Maloak gets taken over Ace. That doesn't make sense because they're both boom or bust, high upside prospects. Trey Johnson to me is just not better than Ace. I'm extremely low on Trey Johnson. I just don't like his game. So to me, Ace should be top 5. I would say like 4 through 6 range makes a lot of sense.
You don't like Trey Johnson. Some people look at Trey Johnson and think that he's a 3-level scorer. He's an automatic bucket that he's going to.
Yeah, I heard the same things about Cam Thomas with the same exact issues in terms of defense and playmaking. And
yeah, but Trey Johnson is 6'6". Cam Johnson's 6'2". You know what I'm saying? Like, look, I don't want Trey Johnson. You guys know how I feel about. I don't want him, but I'm saying like there are people who value him. I'm just not one of them.
No, for sure. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, height doesn't matter. A scorer is a scorer. Kyrie's 6'1", 6'2", and KD's 6'11", 7 foot, right? It doesn't matter how tall you are.
Let me ask you this question. I'll let you back to your point. If a 6'6" 2 guard and a 6'2" 2 guard who both average 24 points a game on 45-36 shooting, both enter free agency. The only difference is one guy 6'6" and the other 6'2". Who's getting more money?
Probably the guy that's taller.
That's why people value Trey Johnson, is because he is 6'6".
Yeah, no, Trey Johnson's not a bad player. If he was the Nets pick, I'd probably not watch all of next year. It does not make that take. He's going to be a solid player in this league, but again, here we go. It's like changing your shirt once you shit your pants. It doesn't make sense. It's like shitting your pants and changing your shirt. There's no reason to draft a 3-4 inch taller version of Cam Thomas to play next to Cam Thomas. Doesn't make sense. He is one of maybe 4 or 5 guys in this entire draft that I would not select if he was available at my pick. I don't care if he's available at 8 or 19. I'm not taking him.
All right. I gotta wrap this up. We'll be back likely Wednesday or Thursday, you said?
Yeah, we'll figure that out.
Can we squeeze 2 more shows in this week? Because I want to do a mock draft and I want to do okay.
For sure.
All right. Any closing thoughts, Dylan? Okay, take us out.
No, that's about it. It was a fun debate with Ribby. I'm glad that we were able to cook somebody today. It's always fun doing so. But yeah, appreciate everybody for joining in. If you guys are new around here, make sure to subscribe. Leave a like. You guys know where to follow all of us. If you want, follow me at NetsPress on Instagram. And appreciate it, as always, Gary. We'll see you guys next time.
It is June 9th, 2025, from Texas to the world. Thank you, and God bless. And King Ribby wants smoke with everybody. He's got the appetite for smoke right now.
Yeah, that's every Knicks fan.
All right, be good, y'all.
Later.